Om Shri Sairam, offering humble pranams at Swami's lotus feet, respected elders, brothers, and sisters. Welcome you all to 139th session of Samarpan, organized by alumni and devotees of Brindavan Ashram, Bengaluru. Samarpan gives us an opportunity to hear, learn, and ponder upon the teachings by his devotees. As Swami said, my life is my message. Recapitulating this, all of us imbibe the same feeling in our life. Today, we are fortunate to have one such person among us who have been part of Sai's mission for close to 4 decades, Sri Bharat Datt. Sri Bharat Datt was former student from batch of 1983 to 94, has completed schooling, undergraduation and post-graduation, and then joined back as faculty at Swami's institution Prasanthi Nilayam. After a few years, Swami chose him and few alumni to send to Delhi and other places so that they can get trained and serve at super specialty hospital Prasanthi Nilayam. A gold medalist from institute, a farm boy, a bhajan singer from Prashanti Mandir group, Sri Bharat Dutt hailed from Udhampur, Kashmir, from a family which had served generations at Indian Army. Dear brothers and sisters, let us all get the joy and learnings while listening to the talk of Sri Bharat Dutt. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.
My salutations to Bhagawan, Sri Sathya Sai Baba, our Lord. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, Bhaiyo or Sajano, thank you for having me for Samarpan 22. A big disclaimer from my side is that I am a nobody. Um, I just was right at the right place at the right time with Bhagwan and was fortunate enough to learn some lessons. And today I am going to share these lessons with you. So please bear with me as I sing sloka to our Lord to guide me to share the right lessons with you all and enjoy our time with Bhagwan. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah Tasmai Shri Sai Rama Namah Tasmai Shri Sai Rama Namah. As we look at this beautiful smile of Bhagwan, um, I'm reminded of his happiness, his ever-present happiness. Always be happy, he said. Always, always be happy. And going back to what I said, I didn't deserve to be, graced with whatever fortune Bhagwan gave me. I say that because I think that the reason I was with Bhagwan was because of my parents, what they did, what they added to the karmic bank. So I wanted to start my talk with my parents and what they did and what they were as human beings and their relationship with God. So starting out this picture in 1982 of my family, um, um, you know, told us a lot about what happened. On the right side is my mother, and she was very religious. My father was a army officer in the Indian Corps of Engineers of the Indian Army, and most of my time, my young childhood, before I came to Swami, we were posted in Kashmir. And prior to this picture, I spent some time in Udhampur, Kashmir. And Swami was very gracious to us. My mother, when we were in Udhampur, I remember it was a sprawling camp. My father was a commander of 16 BRTF, or Border Roads Task Force. He commanded about 5 to 7,000 people, and there were different people, Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs. So we had a camp Gurdwara, a camp temple, and a camp mosque. And very diligently, my mom would take us every Friday to the mosque. We our Ish Devata, our family deity is Hanuman. So every Tuesday we were at the mandir, and every Thursday we were paying our respects to the Guru Granth Sahib in the Gurdwara, Camp Gurdwara. So he's a very, very religious person, um, uh, strong belief in God, and obviously got her through the times my father went to war between 1960 and 80 several times. So I wanted to pay homage to that, and I think that because of that karmic balance, we were able to come to Swami. And I want to start with this story. Colonel Berry was our the course mate for my dad. He was also in the Corps of Engineers, and Swami was coming to visit um, New Delhi. I believe it was 1980. And he called my dad, Colonel Berry called my dad, and I said, look, Swami Sri Sathya Sai Baba is coming to my house. You must come and meet him. You will really benefit from that interaction. And, I was with my father in Kashmir, but my brother and mom were in New Delhi for an exam he was writing. So they showed up at Colonel Berry's place, and they were sitting just like everybody else in the living room, sipping Coke. And Swami glides out of the inner room, giving an interview to a family. Went straight to my mother and said, "Ma kabaya," as if he knew her for generations. "Ma kabaya, namaskaralo," he says. "When did you come, mother? Take my pad namaskar." And as my mom took the namaskar, and she was trying to mumble something as she rose up, Swami said, "Chota beta kidhar hai? Where is your younger son?" Dono ko leke Puttaparthi aao, Swami admission deta. Without my mother saying anything, he said, "Get both sons to Prasanthi Nilayam, and I will give them admission in my college." And he glided away. And that's how we came to Bhagawan, with his sankalpa, with his decision that we were going to be with him. And what fortune, great good fortune awaited us, we didn't know. And going on over to my dad, if you know my dad, here he is, um, uh, building, if you know Punachinda Auditorium, the residential area north of the Punachinda Auditorium was built by him, and he was in charge of that. And as you can see, Swami is pointing to some rocks and talking about it. He was in charge of constructing this, and Swami would come every evening and talk to him and say, "Datta, aim samacharam." What is happening? And Swami would tell him. So this particular day, my father shared this story with me. Swami came and asked him, um, so Datta, when do you think this project will get over? And he said, Swami, in 30 days. And Swami sped away in his red Benz. Next morning, my father showed up at work, and he sees nobody except the supervisor. And so he asked him, what is going on? Where are all the laborers? how come the work has not already started? Because the work used to start a couple of hours before my father came for his inspection. And he said, "Sir, band hai. There's a big strike in Andhra, and it's a statewide strike, and so no laborers are showing up." So my father was flabbergasted. He was thinking, "Look, I just told Swami that this work was going to be completed in 30 days, and it's not going to be completed." And so um, the next day, Swami showed up in his Mercedes Benz again, and you know, put his window down and said, "Datta, em samacharam, what is happening?" And my father said, "Swami, I wanted to apologize to you. No work is being done today because there's a statewide strike. There's a band, and I want to say sorry to you for giving you a deadline of 30 days. I don't know when this work is going to be done, and um, I want to say sorry." And Swami looked at him and said, "Datta, I like your honesty," he said. "You know what mistake you made?" And my father said, "Swami, please let me know what mistake I made. I will try my very best not to repeat it." And he said, "You should have said, Swami, the work will be completed in 30 days by your grace." And my father looked at him and said, "Absolutely, Swami, I will remember that." And so I remember this lesson every time when I am looking to complete a project, buy a home, buy a car, make a trip to India, get a new job. I always pray to Swami, "Swami, if this is good for me, my future, my family's future, let it happen by your grace. If it doesn't happen, that is also your grace. And give me the wherewithal to understand that and to show me another route so that I can progress." And this is a great lesson for all of us with my dad. You have to remember, my father was a staff officer in the Indian Army. He had a driver, a jeep, a khansama or cook. He had two jawans, orderlies, polished everybody's shoes, ironed, took the clothing from ironing and laundry, and it was a highfalutin lifestyle. The same guy is here, serving sambar in the South Indian canteen. How many of us can say, and I'm not saying this because he's my father, I'm saying it because he's that genuine human being who does selfless seva. How many of us can leave a comfortable lifestyle, not for a few days or a couple of weeks or a month, for the rest of your life, and start serving in the South Indian canteen like Samarpan? Um, you know, Surrender. I know I can't. And so I have great respect for my father and the lessons he learned with Swami, and I wanted to share those with you all. So, my father, when he decided to retire, um, here he is. Um, he built, I believe, in 74, the highest road in the world at that time. You can see 18,380 feet. It's his nearest point to heaven. But also, if you ever visit Ladakh as a tourist in Kashmir, and you land in Leh airport, that was built by my father too. He was a smart man. He was an engineer, and in the first 10 in IIT in his class. But he gave up all that to come to Bhagawan. And only a genuine selfless human being can really do that. And he did all the seva for several years, not only constructing sheds and residences and Punjab auditorium, but also looking after the canteen. I can remember one evening, several busloads of Anantapur girls came down, and by 8 o'clock they were late, and by 8 o'clock the coupon office had closed, And I remember either one of the faculty or one of the girls, several of the girls coming to my dad and saying, Colonel Dutt, can we please get some coupons so that we can eat our dinner? And after hours, my dad just didn't care a hoot about what he was doing. He just went straight, opened up the coupon office, and sold them these coupons. And so he was genuine uh, uh, attitude of seva, which he always had. And and so when he decided to retire, if you go back to this picture, when he decided to retire, he came to Swami. Here we are with the Dalai Lama. Um, his pension was blocked up in New Delhi, and we were called for interview. And this is how Swami takes care of you when you are that genuine, selfless human being. And obviously, he was worried because both his kids were in Prasanthi Nilayam. He had to pay the hostel fees. We had to buy shoes, whites, all those expenses were there. But his pension was blocked. So we got this interview with Bhagawan, and Bhagawan said, he told my father at the end of the interview, "Sab theek ho jayega. Don't worry, everything will be fine. Your pension is stuck, but it's temporary. I will take care of it." And then he reached towards the table, took out an envelope full of cash and gave it to him and said, "This will take care of you until your pension arrives." And again, the attention to detail for Bhagwan. And then my father looked at him and said, "Swami, what would I do without you? You saved me." And Swami looked at him and said, "हाँ बहुत बार save किया है, नथुला में भी save किया है." So this is the story my father told me recently, is that when he was a young subaltern in the Indian Army, just graduated from the Indian Military Academy in Dehradun, he was posted in '62 in eastern Arunachal Pradesh, Nifa region, right close to the border of Bhutan and Arunachal Pradesh, and the Chinese invaded. The Chinese army invaded, and the Indian army was utterly unprepared. And at that time, at that area, the only Indian troops present were a company of Army Corps of Engineers. They're not frontline troops like Armored Corps or infantry or paratroopers. They were Corps of Engineers. And so their commanding officer, a major, basically told, "Look, hundreds of thousands of Chinese are battling down the valley. Don't know if you're going to come through this alive. Write your last letters to your family." So my father wrote a letter. He was unmarried at that time, but he wrote a letter to his dad, transcribing his last will and testament. And these guys waited on top of the valley, in ambush, praying to God. And days and weeks went by, no one came. For some obtruse reason, Chinese never came. They turned back and went back to behind the borders. And so Bhagawan was basically telling him, "Look, they went back because I had the sankalpa. I saved you." And this is a beautiful story, which I can't deign to forget and remember. And then the next picture is sitting on the bus in Kodaikanal. He's talking to me, and this reminds me again of what happened, in with my admission. As he was giving us these interviews before my admission, and when he had told me about in that interview, he told me, "No friends, no old friends. Bhagwan is your only friend. Swami is in you, with you, around you. Bhagwan is your only friend. All old friends are bad company. Forget about old friends." So as I came out of the interview room, again, the monkey mind started playing. So I thought, hey, I have this best friend, Sarabjit Singh Sidhu. Let me write this letter, last letter to him, farewell letter. So I went to the post office at that time in the 80s. I don't know if it's still there or not. There used to be something, a blue inland letter form I purchased. I put it in Sathya Vahini while I was sitting for darshan, and started writing this letter to my best friend. And forgetting what Bhagawan had told me about old friends. And Swami came that morning. We just had that interview in the morning. You don't expect to be called for interview, but we did. That evening, I got called for interview with my father and mother. And as Swami speaks with different families outside and private interview inside, as he was concluding the private interview, he looked at my mother and father and me and said, "Chalo ho gaya," means everything is finished. Let's just walk out. And as all of us were getting up, he told me, "Not you. Sit down." He said. So my mother and my parents were pretty um, surprised, but they walked out, and I was really surprised. And Swami kept staring at me, staring at me, staring at me. And now I was getting the heebie-jeebies. I didn't know what to do. He's staring at me like that. And then he says, you don't think Swami is Bhagwan, huh? He looked at me. In Hindi, he said, सोचता है साई भगवान नहीं है, he told me. And I was like, no, Swami, क्या बोल रहे हैं आप मेरे भगवान हो. And he says, किताब में क्या है? I totally forgotten about it. And I said, give me that book, he says. He opened the book, he took out the inland letter form, he says, Bhagwan is postman also, Ra. Bhagwan is postman also. And then he waved his hand and he created a picture. That picture was about me and my friend Sarabjit Singh Sidhu playing hooky from school and smoking a cigarette behind Chinas and Mahal in Udhampur. Now, my parents all didn't even know about this. And look at his sensitivity. He sent him out to preserve my self-respect, not to embarrass me, but also to teach me a lesson. And at that time, when I saw this picture, I broke down, and I realized, really who Bhagwan is. That Lord of the world is in front of me, and instead of running away, I have to run towards him. And I should deem myself fortunate that he even deigns to pay attention to me. So that was a big transformative part of my journey with Bhagwan. I wanted to share with you, how his potence, omniscience, and omnipresence manifested to me. Um, so as we go along, this is a beautiful group picture, with a scenic group picture going to in Kodaikanal. Some of us had Polaroid cameras at that time. We had lots of great fun. Here is during that '85 trip. I think Tamil New Year's Day, sometime early July, and that day we had bhajans. I remember it's Tamil New Year's Day because I was singing Karuna Sindhu Dasharatha Nandan, and Swami came and hit me in the back. Said, "Hey, ज़्यादा हिंदी मत गाओ. ये Tamil New Year's Day है. बहुत तमिल लोग हैं यहाँ पे. आप simple नामावली गाओ," he told me. So Tamil New Year's Day, bhajan is over. We're sitting. Swami's given darshan, and he sees Malaysia Vasudevan, who's one of the big devotional singers in the crowd, and he says, "Oh, Malaysia, come by." He looked really happy, and he says, "You have come. Today's Tamil New Year's Day. Let's have a program," he said. So Malaysia Vasudevan G was a little confused. He said, "Bhagwan, I'm here. I just came for a darshan. I don't have my troupe with me. I don't have my tabla player, my harmonium player, my veena player." And Swami said, "Oh, don't worry. My boys are there. They will play," he said. So you have to remember at that time, '85. I mean, I was playing harmonium for not even 2 years. I was, a little green around my edges, and so I was a little nervous. And as you see me taking namaskar before the program, and as I can also see Swami's lips. He used to chew pan at that time. So as Mr. Vasudevan took his namaskar, Swami whispered something in his ear, and then the concert progressed. It was a beautiful concert. I don't know about the audience, but I enjoyed it so much. And different compositions. And I don't understand a word of Tamil, but it struck my heart, the feeling with which he sang each song. And the concert was wonderful. At the end of it, Swami created a ring, and our trip progressed, and we went for dinner with Swami. So all this went on. Here is Swami distributing on our first day at Kodaikanal toothpaste, and he's asking, who doesn't brush his teeth? They don't get this toothpaste. Bhagawan was so such a natural, in his interaction, that you could forget he's God, but we should never forget that he was really the omnipotent God in front of us. Here he's giving some chocolates, 5 star. I believe they call 5 star chocolates in India, and he's on the right. He's saying, "I don't like this smell. I really don't. I don't know how you guys eat this." But anyways, fast forward many years down the lane, and on one birthday program, and I don't know if I have that picture here, but this is him saying Bangaru to somebody. It's such a beautiful pose. Um, anyways, fast forwarding down the lane, and we were sitting in the behind the stage of Punachan Auditorium, and rehearsing for one of the birthday programs. And Mr. Malaysia was there and was one of the singers I was playing harmonium for. And Swami came, listened to the rehearsal, and went on his way. And for some reason, this is many years down after 85. I remember that concert because Mr. Malaysia was the one who was there. And as you know, during the break, as we banter, I asked him, Mr. Vasudevan, do you remember in '85? That was the first time I played harmonium for you was in Kodaikanal and on stage. And he said, yeah, how can I forget? Swami created a ring for me after the concert. And I said, do you remember, before the concert, that Swami whispered something in your ear when you took Namaskar? Because I was already sitting on the stage and I saw it. And he said, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember what he said. He said, you are a little bit nervous because you are, a beginner harmonium player, but Swami said he's very good. Just whenever you start, you tell him the name of the raga." And so that's what he did during the concert. He would, before every song, he would say, "This is Sindhu Bhairavi, this is Ahir Bhairav, this is Shankara Bharanam," and that's how the concert progressed. And I never understood why he did that, but that's when he told me that Swami whispered in his ear. And it just tells you his attention to detail, his belief in your skill and aptitude, what you don't yourself believe you are capable of, he knows you are. And that's again his omnipotence. And that's again his confidence in you to put you in that position where you can reach those goals you're capable of, as long as you have the faith and devotion in him. So I remember that so much. Um, it really touched my heart when he said that he whispered those words in his ear, and took care of me at that time, took care of my growth as a bhajan singer and harmonium player. This is another pose behind Miss Ben's, the divine pose before the divine prose. Swami always, taught us so many, 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 many different things, and so many different stories came off in Kodaikanal. But what I most remember about Kodaikanal was the best period of my life. We would live with Swami, eat with Swami, sleep outside his room. We got a chance to put slippers on him every day when he came out in the morning. It was the best moments of my life, enshrined in my memory. And I remember one day, um, We were serving. You have to remember that I am new to South Indian culture, so I didn't even know that curd rice is to be served at the end. So what happened was, while I was serving the meal, the midday meal, the lunch, I brought curd rice before the first course. And as soon as Swami saw me, he chased me out of there. He said, "Kya kar raha hai? What are you doing getting curd rice so early?" And he chased me into the kitchen. And as he chased me into the kitchen, Mrs. Ratanlal was in charge of the kitchen, and she was there cooking some vegetable. And as Swami chased me into the kitchen, screaming at me, Mr. Ratanlal turned around and said, "Swami, um, please don't, मेरे kitchen में मत आओ, please. आप disturb कर रहे हो, आप बाहर जाओ." She told Swami, "Don't come into the kitchen and don't trouble my boy. He's helping me. You need to leave." And Swami mumbled something and he left out. And the reason I'm sharing this story with you is, again, that the relationship between Mr. Ratanlal and Swami, that God Bhakta relationship. I mean, only a great soul could have had that interaction with Swami. But she actually did save me, because Swami was screaming at me at that period of time. Um, this is, in Ooty, singing bhajans. I remember singing bhajans and playing harmonium in the Ooty school, and also in Brindavan. And it reminds me of once one I had an experience in Brindavan. The beautiful thing about the bhajans at those times, we didn't have any mics. There were no mics. We would just sing extempore, and that's why whenever devotees hear Sathya students sing, they don't understand why our voices are so loud, because we really didn't have any mics. All we had is our voices and our riyas. So I remember one day in Vrindavan, Swami came down from the stairs. The nice thing about those bhajan sessions were that Swami would himself sing one bhajan, and it was so beautiful. So that day, Swami came down, and he was planning to sing. I was the resident harmonium player, so he came down. He asked me, "Bharat, I am going to sing Hari Bhajan Bila Sukh Shanti Nahi. Tu Pancham theek hai?" He asked me, and I was so amazed by that. The Lord of the universe is asking me what is right. Hell, I don't know what is right. Swami knows everything. How can I tell him? But I knew the tone Swami used to sing in, and I said, "Swami, आपका voice high hai? Your voice is high. 2.5 pancham would be better." And he says, "हाँ, 2.5 pancham रखना." He said, and that interaction stayed with me. But the lesson here is not just that I was enamored by that experience, but even the Lord understands the rules of bhajan, of how you need to set your shruti, how you need to tune the tabla, how you need to sing the bhajan, how you start with Ganesh, and then Guru, and then Devi, and how the Bhava Raga Tala is so important. And those are the rules of bhajans, and that's what makes the bhajan a success. That's what makes all. What is bhajan? Bhajan is a sandhi of bhaja and jana, worshipping together as a group. So I can sit here and sing numbers of bhajans, but that's not really bhajan. Bhajan is when all of us sit together. The more, the merrier. All these souls combine their devotional sentiments into one towards the universal being, and that is bhajan. That gets us that vibe where we lose everything about the material world, and we get lost in Swami, like Mirabai did with Krishna. Also, what we learned with Bhagawan was a lot about Hinduism. You know, Sometimes Hinduism is limited by, uh, you know, books and experts, and they just call it a religion, and they're limiting it by saying that Hinduism is a religion. It's not. It's not religion. It's culture. Also, it's a culture, and it evolved. If you read about early history of India, between 500 BC and 580, it evolved in response to the local populations. And so there were different local populations in India. Some came from Iran, some came from Central Asian steppes. Others were resident in like the Dravidians and many other sects in northeastern India, Kamrupa. Um, and so the religion evolved by including all these sects, and therefore we have the pantheon of different gods. And it's very easy to say monotheistic and polytheistic religion without understanding what the roots of the religion and culture are. And so the Hinduism was always an inclusive culture. I mean, Christianity came to Kerala long before the French, Portuguese, and English arrived in India. And if you read some of the books written on Jesus and his last years before his baptism, I wanted to mention that the picture I showed you with our family with the Dalai Lama. There's a book. If you ever go to Ladakh and you go to Hemis Gumpa, which is the only monastery, Buddhist monastery, not destroyed by General Zorawar Singh when Punjab conquered under Ranjit Singh conquered Kashmir. There's a book which details Jesus Christ's journey in Ladakh and his discussion with the Tibetan Buddhist monks about Tantric Buddhism and what religion he was going to teach, which was Christianity. So Hindu and Indian culture are very rich and can't be limited by these book definitions like religion or polytheism or what we hear today in society. In fact, it's a very inclusive culture. And Swami taught us a lot about this and Sanatana Dharma. What is Sanatana Dharma? But different roots towards the same universal God, right? So if you're praying to Sikhism and Guru Granth Sahib, or Islam to Quran, or the Vedas in Hinduism or Puranic Hinduism, they're all to the same Godhead, and there's God. And really, there were several religions coexisting between 500 BC, 580 in India, not just Hinduism, the Puranic Hinduism and the Vedic Hinduism, but also Jainism and Buddhism, and a lot of traders, Muslim traders, settled in the Malabar hills in Kerala, and actually got absorbed into Indian society, and so did the Greeks. So it's important to religion, Sanatana Dharma. I mean, I'm from Punjabi culture. It's important to remember, the earliest indication in our culture is, Guru Nanak Ji going to the banks of the Jhelum with his Muslim friend Mardan, Bhai Mardan, and who was playing the rabab for him and singing kirtanas. And which reminds me of Ek Onkar Satnam Karta Purat Nirpar Nirvay Akal Noor Ajani Sevam Nirpar Nirvay Akal Noor. Timeless jewel. Bhagawan is the timeless jewel. And the Sanatana Dharma we learn from him is that it doesn't matter who you worship. In fact, if you look at what Swami said, he didn't even want you to worship himself. He wanted you to worship his values, his human values of Sathya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema, Ahimsa. The simple lessons he taught me, what I remember, if you look behind, it says, "Why fear when I am here?" What a beautiful saying. Why fear when I am here? We create all these fears in our mind about our jobs, about our security, about our financial security, about our children. Why fear? Have that faith in Bhagawan. Leave it up to him. You gotta have that faith. And we are lucky with the 7, now 8 billion people in this world. Not all of them know about Bhagawan. We do. We do. And we have to keep that faith strong. With that faith strong, I want to end, what I started here with this beautiful story I have with Swami. Um, and it just tells you how Swami can attract you, but you can attract Bhagavan too as a devotee. The Bible says I separated myself from myself so that I could love myself. I can't remember if it's the Old Testament or the New Testament, but there's a lot of common in different religions. Then there is disparity, and obviously in today's world, unfortunately, a lot of people focus on the disparity. But as Swami students, we should remember that no one can take away our times with him. They are sacrosanct. They are never going to go away. And we are all blessed that we even had a glimpse of him. Not that I knew about it when I was with him, but I now know that that was the greatest fortune ever to befall me in my limited life here on earth. And so I want to end the story with how you can also attract Bhagwan. There was this time, I think I was in my undergrad, Bhagwan, my parents came to Prasanthi Nilayam. And as generally when my parents come to Prasanthi Nilayam, we as a family get a bunch of interviews. And so they were here. Unfortunately, I was struck down with a fever, and it was influenza, and actually infectious influenza. So the doctor, the resident physician in the hospital, told me, "Look, Bharat, you can't go to for darshan. You're infectious." I was quarantined, and I was on antibiotics and medications and all that, and I couldn't go to school, college or darshan, and so I could not go to, and so when the boys came back after darshan and bhajan, they, some of my friends came up to me and say, Bharat, what happened today? And I was one of them get my food, and because I was not even allowed in the dining hall, and they said, you know what happened today, Bharat? And I said, no, what happened? Well, your parents got called for an interview with your brother. And I was so pained, I was like, my God, I'm sitting here in quarantine and I'm missing all this. What's going to happen? So next morning, when the doctor came in the morning, I went to him and said, sir, can you please allow me to go for bhajan? Because, my parents are here, they're getting interviews and I'm missing interviews. And the physician said, no, 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 I can't allow you. You're going to infect everybody. You need to be quarantined. So evening arrived, all the boys went for darshan and bhajan. Came back, another boy got me my food, and he said, Bharat, you know what happened? And I said, I don't even want to know, but tell me what happened. And he said, oh, your parents got a call for interview again with your brother. So I was like really, really distraught. And so I went to the warden this time. I said, sir, please, can you please let me go for darshan, because my parents are here and they're getting interviews and I'm missing all of them. And he said, no, that's up to the doctor. If he doesn't give you the note, I cannot let you go. So I went back to the doctor. I asked him again, and the doctor refused. The boys went for darshan, came back with the same old story, third interview with Bhagawan. So now I said, I got to take matters into my own hands. So I decided that I'm going to break the rules and I'm going to go. And, so I got the Indian Tylenol, the Crocin, or whatever you call it. And I could not go with the boys because, I would be caught. So I had to wait for everybody to go to darshan and bhajans and then follow 10 minutes later. And I did that. And as I walked into the bhajan hall, I sat down. Swami had come early. Swami had come early, and he had taken everybody for interview, which included my family and my brother. And again, I was in doldrums. I was very sad and depressed, and missing this a time with Bhagwan was a big deal for me. And I don't know if he remembers, but I remember Saram Bhai passing me the harmonium and asking me to sing the second bhajan, and I did so. I remember I singing Neil Bordloy's composition in Shivranjani. Sai Govinda, Sai Gopala, Tere bina Sai sab hai mera, Tere bina Sai sab hai mera, Sai Govinda, Sai Gopala. ले लो मुझे साई शरण तुम्हारी, दीजो मेरे प्रभु दर्श तुम्हारी, आओ मेरे साई मन मंदिर में, आओ मेरे साई मन मंदिर में, आओ मेरे साई मन मंदिर में. As I'm singing, tears are pouring down my cheeks, and I'm praying to Bhagwan, saying, Bhagwan, why are you doing this? Why are you not letting me in your presence? And as I finish my bhajan, I usually have my eyes closed when I sing bhajans. As I finish my bhajan, somebody nudged me in the back, and I look up, and between the bhajan hall door to the VIP corridor, my brother is standing, and the interview room door is open. Now you got to understand that once the interview room door closes for interviews, it never ever opens until the interviews are done. This was a huge anomaly. Right in the middle of the interview, it was open, and my brother was standing right there, and he was beckoning me. I did not need a second invitation. I jumped up and ran into the interview room door and sat down. Bhagwan completely ignored me. He kept talking to whoever he was talking to. And then came time for our family's private interview. And so Bhagwan took us inside, and he took care of all and sundry, the family and what was going on. At the end of that interview, Bhagwan looked at my mother, and he said something very beautiful. He said, "Ma, देखा तुम्हारा बेटा इतना अच्छा गाया कि साई को भी बुला दिया." Translation is, did you hear how well your son sang? And you got to remember, I had a fever. My throat was not even great. But it was the feeling, the devotion for Bhagwan welling out of me. Itna acha gaya ke sai ko bhi bula diya. He sang so well that he pulled me. Then he looked at my parents and said, "Look, my sankalpa, my desire was not to have Bharat in this room today with us. But he called me with so much yearning that I had but no choice but to bring him in." And again, disclaimer here, I'm not the greatest singer or the greatest devotee, and not at all. On that day, I found the right amount of yearning for Bhagwan, and to um, put that in my bhajan and call for him. And the lesson for all of us here, ladies and gentlemen, is that we all, regardless of where we are, in India, in the US, in Canada, anywhere in the world, we can call him and he will be there, because he is there for us. He is the reason we are here, and he loves us. Let's not all forget that. And I wanted to close this with this lesson I learned. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you enjoy my talk. Jai Sairam.
Thank you, Shri Bharat Datt, for sharing us your experiences and teachings about Swami and taking us back through your memory lane. I'm sure today's session we just had a tip of iceberg like experiences. There would be many more from you about Swami. Maybe at a later amount of time we can have a session again. The key takeaways from your today's talk were admitting that you securing seat at Swami's Institute and further being at his Sannidhi, good deeds and Swami's Sankalpa. Believing that it's only because of Swami's grace for whatever the task you take up in your life without thinking too much about the outcome and understanding the situation rather than worrying much is the only way out as Samarpan towards Swami. During your second interview, past and ensuring that it's only Swami who is the friend in life. Furthermore, ensures that he is omnipresent, omnipotent, and he nurtures us towards reaching the goals if we have faith and devotion towards him. Finally, just by following through the five core values taught by Swami, that is Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema, Ahimsa, would help us sail through the disparities of life. Along with that, if if we have strong yearning towards him, he would hear to us regardless of wherever one is situated. On behalf of all listeners, I would like to once again convey my sincere thanks to you, Sri Bharat Datt, for sharing your experiences. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the entire organizing team for providing this platform to all the devotees of Bhagwan. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.